OK, on va aller surprendre.
Okay, now we're going to surprise Miss Tait. Catherine Tait has no idea who's going to interview her today, so I can't wait to see her face. She'll either be really happy or not at all.
Bonjour, Madame Tait.
Hello, Miss Tait.
Ça va bien?
How are you?
Wow.
How's it going?
Oui, ça va très bien, merci.
Just great, thank you.
Ça va bien. You didn't
Great.
know we were going to interview you today.
No.
They wanted to be a
Well, there you go.
Est-ce que c'est une bonne surprise?
Is it a good surprise?
It's a wonderful surprise.
Oh, great. Catherine, I'm delighted to be
Me
here.
too, to be here with Isabelle Racicot. What a treat, a great pleasure.
Thank you. So, how does it feel to be a few weeks from the end of your term?
Well, listen, there's sadness, of course, having to say goodbye to all the teams, all the people, the colleagues who I now feel so close to.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm eager to see, what the future holds.
I can imagine there are all sorts of feelings tied up in what you're going through. It's also important to note that you're the first woman in CBC Radio-Canada's 88-year history to be at the helm. We'll talk about that milestone, but what's really intriguing me is that you nearly didn't take the job. You'd initially said no. I'd love to know why.
Well, listen, I started off as a producer.
Yes.
Television, feature films, an entrepreneur. I had my private life.
Yes.
And my anonymity. And then I'd always worked in the private sector. So for me, the thought of moving over to the public sector, of becoming a personality, it was frankly terrifying. So I hesitated. And finally, it was my colleagues, my friends in the industry who said, listen, Catherine, you're the only person for the job. So I said, well, okay then. And also, there was my mother, who was in Ottawa, 95 years old, who persuaded me to return to Canada and take the job.
As if it all just came together.
And you just mentioned that you had your life, you had a great job in New York, great life there. And you still made that leap of faith. So I want to know, when you're comfortable in a situation and you get an opportunity, when do you know you have to take it?
Such a great question, Isabelle. I was actually yesterday talking with our emerging leaders. We have this program for diverse emerging leaders at CBC Radio-Canada, and they asked me exactly the same question.
Really?
How will I know what job to take and which one to avoid? And I said, there's a kind, for me personally, it's an equal measure of fear, learning, and adventure, and service.
Oh, wow.
So for me, what am I doing? How am I serving, whether it's in the creative process, how am I advancing the creative process, or how am I advancing in the case of the public broadcaster, how am I advancing this service that we do each and every day?
What's my purpose, right?
Yeah.
Have you always, is that a question that comes often? What is my purpose?
Absolutely, absolutely, especially as a woman in the media sector.
Okay, let's talk about being the woman.
Yes.
Because I know you were reminded of this a lot at the start of your term.
Especially the start.
Yes, but it's true that you broke through the glass ceiling. Before you, it had been 15 men at the helm in one long line. I'm wondering if there was anything you experienced from being the first woman CEO that you didn't necessarily expect.
There's the fact that as a woman, the expectations are a lot higher. And you're criticized harshly if things go wrong.
Yes.
And for me personally, I think that as a woman, I also tend to judge myself. I felt I had to go better, go faster, because in a way I was representing all women. So there were these pressures, of course.
It comes with responsibility as well,
Yes.
right? When you look back, what was the pressure?
Listen, my mother worked as a secretary at CBC in the 50s. So when I got this job to be the president and CEO of CBC Radio-Canada, oh my goodness, that's a big, big weight on my shoulders. I had to prove to her and to everybody that, that the choice was the right one and that I was the right person in the right place at the right time. And that responsibility is huge, and the weight of that is huge.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but because, you know, I'm a person of color in a very white environment, I always felt that I had to be always better, do more, work harder, just to make sure that I would not only be considered as good as my, you know, white counterpart, but as also because I wanted to make sure that I was going to leave the door open for others behind me. Did you feel that kind of weight as well of, I cannot be just the first, I have to open up the doors for the others, right?
I've often said that at the beginning I was a little resistant to what is it like to be the first woman, because honestly I'm a human being, and that's what matters. But then with time, and especially during the pandemic and the cry for social justice that we experienced after the murder of George Floyd, and we were having those kinds of discussions about racism in our institution, and it was like the penny dropped. I realized, oh, I know why I'm here. I've spent my life on the other side of the window looking in. And here I am, I'm now at the table.
Yeah.
And so my responsibility is, I got my foot in the door, I'm holding the door open with that foot.
Yeah.
So that others can come in, not just women, people of color, people, indigenous people, people living with disabilities. Because our responsibility, as you know, at CBC Radio-Canada is to serve all Canadians, not one group. We must reflect.
I have to tell you that while preparing for our conversation, you know, I couldn't help noticing how you were the target of many attacks, whether it came from political leaders or the media or even employees within the organization. And I'm curious to find out, what did that ignite in you?
Well, it's very painful. You know that from anybody who's anyone who is a public figure experiences that, especially the online hate can be very, very hard. And as somebody who was not born to be in front of a camera, I'm behind the camera as a producer. I had no interest in being in front of the camera. So it was really, really hard. I had to separate my personal experience from the chair that I sit in. I'm the CEO, I'm the president of CBC Radio-Canada. That's what they're attacking. They're trying to discredit the organization. And if I'm the vehicle for that, well, I have to separate myself from it. But honestly, there is no doubt in my mind that as an early feminist, we're losing ground. And
as women?
As women.
Pourquoi?
Why?
Well, I think there's this sort of fatigue among men, but also people in general. Okay, enough already about women and parity and all that.
We're really in a very tough period. And we've seen it in the United States with Roe versus Wade. We've seen this kind of normalization of turning women into targets, like you describe. So whereas a man might be described as forceful and a hero, I might be described as combative and difficult, thin-skinned. I mean, I've even been described as, she's not in her swim lane, as if the lane was predetermined of what I can and cannot do. So I'm an outspoken person, I'm a candid person, so I couldn't change who I am. But I felt that pressure that really, you know, it was an effort to silence me. And that's what I kept on saying to myself. You got to keep speaking out. You got to keep talking about the value of public broadcasting. Got to keep talking about the importance of reflecting Canada in all its diversity. And that was my focus.
Would you say this position has changed you at all?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I learned a lot. First, for me, the real gift was the chance to work in French and English. You know it too. It's a marvelous thing having these two languages.
An asset, yes.
Absolutely an asset. And then there's everything I learned about Indigenous peoples. I gained an enormous amount from that. I mean, I had no idea. When I took the job, I thought it was all about Ottawa and finding funds for public media. I really thought this was the mandate. But the end, it wasn't that at all. It was about connecting with people, getting out into the field, meeting Canadians in every region, and all these people. It gave me a great deal of pleasure, something I'll have for life.
A richness.
Yes, exactly.
So I want to take this opportunity to get some advice from you to young women who are ambitious and who, want to rule the world. What would you like to say to them?
Be brave.
Yeah.
Be bold. And as I said, we're living in a very scary time. It's not just for women, I would say, for racialized people or an Indigenous person. You have to stand up for yourself. We need to hear your voice. So don't be silenced. Don't be silenced. And so it's courage. It's really courage.
What was your biggest takeaway from the role?
The public is central to everything we do. It's our audiences who count, not us. We're here to serve Canadians. So the lesson, if I can call it that, if there's any one lesson that will stick with me, it's this. In a public service like CBC Radio-Canada, sometimes we can get too involved in our own things, and then
Sometimes it's ego.
yes, there's that too.
Our own ego sometimes.
Exactly. So we think we're at the center of things, but really it's the public. I think it's the public's sense of CBC and Radio-Canada as being theirs. That's what matters the most.
Did you learn something about yourself that you didn't know prior to taking this mandate?
Probably the biggest learning was I had to learn to listen. And for people who are always moving very quickly and trying to be ambitious, sometimes we don't sit and listen. And certainly in the social justice conversation, I had to listen. I would say, well, I know what it feels like. No, you don't. I'm a woman. I know exactly what you're going through. No, you don't. And especially for the Indigenous strategy, which I believe is one of my, if there's a legacy, is really important. I had to give up control to the Indigenous employees to do the strategy. For a control freak, I have to give them the power. And then I realized, if you give them the power, then they fill the space in the most beautiful way, and we have a most fantastic strategy as a result.
Where do you see Radio-Canada and CBC in 10 years?
So we're going into a period, I would say, of I don't want to say hostile environment, but certainly not as friendly. We're going to have to double down on our strengths,
right.
and I believe our competitive strength is our proximity to the public. Google and Netflix aren't going to open an office in Trois-Rivières or in Lethbridge. Not going to happen. We're there. So that's what counts. But in order to be relevant 10 years from now, CBC and Radio-Canada will have to look a lot more like the people we serve. And we've done a lot of work in evolving that. You talked about it earlier. And that journey, I think, is just beginning. And it's got a long way to go. But I'm so proud of the things we've accomplished.
That was really fun, Catherine. I'm so happy I got to sit down with you. Je te souhaite
all the best for the future. Whatever you choose to do, I wish you lots and lots of success in your next move.
Merci, Isabelle.
Thank you, Isabelle.
Since I know it's not retirement, because you tell us, right? Catherine Tait is not retiring.
Not a chance.
Merci, Isabelle. Quel plaisir.
Such a pleasure.